Joining us once again, a friend of mine, friend of the show, talkSPORT's Jake Watson, huge Leicester City fan, to join in the general positive vibes going on the podcast this week. West Ham have had just narrowly avoiding the biggest FA Cup upset in history before one of our players disgracefully kicking his cat all over the place, front page and back pages of newspapers up and down the country, and then he played bafflingly. Bit of a negative one from our point of view. Jake, surely whatever's been going on at Leicester has been far more positive this week. Nottingham Forest losing to your bitter rivals in the cup, and one of your fans running on the pitch and punching an opposition player.
Yeah.
What a time to be a football fan.
A quiet week in the world of Leicester and West Ham, wasn't it? Off the back of Nottingham Forest, I thought that my week was going to be talking about that. Fortunately, Boreham Wood saved us somewhat by knocking out Bournemouth, so it meant everyone was talking about that cup upset on the Monday morning, as opposed to Leicester being, demolished by their local rivals and as you say, the absolute mayhem on and off the pitch from some of the supporters. So yeah, it's that coupled with the pretty horrendous form over the last few weeks, and it's not really a period when I'm looking forward to watching Leicester play at the moment. But yeah, we've had worse weeks, haven't we? I'm sure.
What did you make of the stuff with the fan then? Because that sort of, rightfully so, just dominated it. There's been a bit of a narrative until Kurt Zouma came along, really, and changed that completely. There's been a narrative about fan behaviour and more pit encroachments, which there definitely has been in the games I've been at and been watching. You watch just as much football as we do, and there is a line, and things do seem to be getting worse, from my opinion. I'll be honest, Leicester aren't really a club I would associate with that normally. I'm sure they've got a section of fans, but is it the incident something that surprised you, or? Not
really, no. I'm going to do a classic Arsene Wenger and say I didn't see it. And I genuinely didn't. And it was quite strange, to be honest, because the Leicester fans, I was there at the game. We had the whole stand behind the goal, and the incident was on the far right-hand side, and I was on the far left. And it was quite strange, because I don't think many people were actually aware that it happened during the game. It was obviously people who were watching and people on social media who were far more aware. But look, obviously it goes without saying, absolutely ridiculous, appalling, and the guy will get his just punishment. And, there was trouble before the game as well around Nottingham. And whilst I'm not going to absolve all blame from the Leicester fans, because ultimately I think it would happen with any football club, because unfortunately there's a minority who follow all football teams. But it was a local derby, and it was on at 4:00. It was 4:00 in the afternoon. We've not played each other in 8 years, and that was done to make sure that it had prime slot on TV. So look, we all, I'm not going to say they were asking for trouble, but what did you expect to happen? People were out drinking all day. It was a huge opportunity for these guys to go to a team and a ground they haven't done in years, and people can't handle the drink, and they get excited, and stupid crap happens. And I think Leicester will now get fined and punished for it, and rightly so. But I think that the takeaway message for me is the football authorities and the FA, etc., need to have a look at it and thinking, right, well, let's not do that again. There's a reason why we have local derbies at lunchtime.
Jake, what are your views on? I saw there was a video from, I think it's Hamza Chowdhury after that night. He's at a party with a couple of other players as well.
James Justin and Danny Ward.
Yeah, I've got my view on it, but I'm interested to hear your view of being a Leicester fan. And so a lot of Leicester fans are really, really angry with the fact that they were at a party until 5 a.m. the following day. What's your view on it?
Yeah, bitterly disappointed with the players.
Okay.
Look, we know that footballers have lives, and they've got to, and they will do that. But the fact that one of the most embarrassing days in recent history, and it's absolutely embarrassing to not only be knocked out by lower league opposition, but to be Nottingham Forest, and in the manner that it was. And also, the comments after the game from the manager was saying that it's questioning the players' desire and saying that a lot of these players are going to be moved out in the summer. Well, of those three, 2 of those players are likely to be moved out in the summer. So it gives you a fairly decent indication, James, of I think anyway, of what those players think of the manager. They're not bothered. they're going to move on. And the fact that they allowed themselves to be out till 5 o'clock in the morning and the video to then surface on the internet the next day, it's just really naive and it's not professional. And in the case of Hamza Chowdhury as well, this isn't the first time it's happened. I mean, boys, it was the last time we spoke, if you remember, the back end of last season, when, mysteriously, just before the team news were announced, we found out that half the Leicester team had broken the COVID rules. And then we lost that game, and it played a huge factor in us not getting top 4. We missed out by 1 point. And if you remember, we were 3-0 down after about half an hour against you guys because of that horrific preparation for that game. And Hamza Chowdhury was one of the main culprits of that situation. So I do think there's a culture there which needs to change. And I think the players are taking the mickey. I really do.
What's going on then? Because Brendan Rodgers has ultimately guided Leicester so well over the past few years. It's common knowledge the amount of time you spent in the top 4 without actually finishing there at the end of the season, the amount of game weeks. Obviously not a great stat, but it lends itself, or it clearly demonstrates how well Leicester have been playing on the whole. And it doesn't seem Brendan Rodgers seems like a good manager. It doesn't seem like that's the sort of culture he would perpetuate at a club. And on and off the pitch, the wheels just seem to have come off in the past few months. What's the timescale and why? Yeah,
it's been a strange season in general, to be honest. It's never got going at any point, and it's caught us all by surprise because we didn't lose any of our star players in the summer, which we've done every other year over the last 5-6 years. And the goal of the summer transfer window was to improve the squad, and we thought we did that. So if you look at the fact that we'd finished 5th the last 2 seasons and we'd won the FA Cup, and then we started the season winning the Community Shield as well, for many they won't acknowledge that as a proper trophy, but for teams like Leicester who don't play in it regularly, whilst we know it's not a major trophy, it is of significance. So we went into the season with pretty high hopes of trying to at least replicate what we've done the last 2 seasons. But we've been a million miles away from that kind of level. I think we've won maybe 4 or 5 games in the league this season, but I can name you 3 of those games which we won when we were absolutely dreadful. And there were some stats flying around lately of when people do the breakdowns of passes into the final third, shots conversion, clean sheets, and Leicester are right down the very bottom. And we've been saved by those 3 games against Wolves, Norwich, and Brentford, where we didn't deserve to win, but somehow we did, and it puts us in mid-table. But the reality of our performances is we've been a bottom half side this season. We've been knocked out the FA Cup by lower league opposition. We threw away a great opportunity in the League Cup quarterfinals against Liverpool when they played their reserves. We were pre-season favourites along with you guys for the Europa League. We got knocked out of the flipping group stages, and now we're in mid-table. So it has been dreadful. Now, no matter how well you look at it, it's not been a good season at all.
Jake, do you think that? See, there's talk that Tielemans is on his way. He's going to go on a free in the summer. Given the season you've had up to this point, or up to at least the transfer window, Leicester in the exact same boat as us, needed to strengthen in key areas, didn't. Do you think that? We all know how ambitious the Leicester owners are. They've been superb for the football club ever since they arrived. Do you think that which is similar at West Ham, that not signing anyone and not improving that squad has kind of showed the players like Tielemans that actually that ambition at the football club is either not as high as it should be or waning a little bit, and they're kind of almost resting on the laurels a little bit? We've had a couple of good seasons. We've won the FA Cup, won the Premier League. We don't need to improve as much as perhaps we need to.
I actually think there are quite a lot of differences between the 2 windows, despite the fact that neither of us signed any players. I think you tell me if I'm wrong, but I think in West Ham's case, it's a situation where the Sullivans and Golds aren't really giving Moyes the cash that he needs and wants. For Leicester, it is different. Our squad is too big. The problem that we've had this season, on top of the issues I've already touched on, is the injuries.
Yeah.
So what's the point in us going to sign a central defender for 30-40 million pounds in January when Wesley Fofana's going to be back in a couple of months? And there's that case throughout the team. Now, in the summer, Youri Tielemans will go, as I suspect Shaglar Soyuncu will, and there's a few others that we want to move on, but we can't move them on right now. So it really is building towards a big summer rebuild. Naturally, fans wanted to see players come in to help us out right now, but it would have just been a short fix problem. And I don't think it really solves the longer term issues. And look, we're not really going to win anything and achieve something this season, and that's okay. We did last season and we did the season before. You can't win and achieve something every single season. So sometimes you just have to take stock, take a step back and say, right, this one hasn't gone to plan. How are we going to improve it next season? And I think that's what, and I hope that's what they're doing right now.
And do you think that's the thing with Leicester? You will improve, won't you? Yeah,
hopefully.
Leicester fans, James, can probably sit on those sentiments and accept them a little more than West Ham, can't we? Because we're
filled the trophy cabin up a little bit over the last few years as well.
Exactly. They've bought enough credit for people to go, actually, it's all right if this season is average, because they've got faith in the people running the show that in the summer again they'll go again in order to try and make the next 4 years as good as the last 4.
Yeah, I completely agree that it's probably a little bit easier to accept for Leicester, given the success you've had compared to us. That's it's been 40 years since you last won a trophy. If you don't count playoff finals and Betway Cups and all the rest of it. But
we absolutely do, for sure. You're right.
But in terms of that rebuild that you've mentioned in the summer, obviously Brendan Rodgers has mentioned it. Actually, is Brendan Rodgers the right man to oversee that rebuild?
My personal opinion, yes. But there's a long time and a long way to go.
I can't
until the summer.
Why anyone wouldn't feel that way,
because there's a situation where it looks like there's a disconnect between the players and the manager right now. As I said earlier, he called out the players after the game. You don't publicly criticize players and call out their desire and their commitment to the club unless he hasn't already tried everything else and this is the last resort. So now Brendan, we've never seen Brendan Rodgers do that before. So why is he doing that now? Because he's tried and he's tried and he's tried, and clearly it's not working. So if there's a situation where there's 10 or so players which aren't happy with the manager, what's it quicker and easier and cheaper to do? It's to change the manager as opposed to 10 players. So the owners have got a decision to make where they either trust Brendan Rodgers and see him as the man to overhaul the squad and freshen it up and go again in the summer, or they sack him and say, well, actually, we think the players are good enough, and think the problem here is that the manager is no longer getting to tune out the players. And it has at times just felt like Brendan is struggling to get a reaction from the players. He is a very good manager. There's no question, but if he has lost the backing of a number of the players, then you're left with a decision to make. And whilst I do like Brendan, I want him to stay and I want him to turn things around. My concern is that over the next few weeks, we've got Liverpool, and then of course we've got you guys. I think there's a very, very real possibility if we lose both of those games heavily that Brendan could be without a job next week. I really do think that. I mean, I hope not, but I think that could be a real possibility.
Yeah, just where you get that like golden spell, that little perfect time where everything's harmonious and working, that can go stale quite quickly, can't it? And then it's almost, you rarely see it clawed back, do you?
But that's what it feels. That's what it's felt like all season. It's just felt stale. When you're watching your team, and the one thing that you want, any football fan wants, is to know that your team has given everything. We lose games of football. I've seen Leicester a lot worse than what we are right now. But what we don't accept is when you walk away from the performance thinking, I don't really think they threw the kitchen sink at it today. I don't really think that, players have left everything out on the pitch. And it just feels that, as I've said, that there's certain players, and quite a lot of them, who have been massively off their top levels. And, combine that with injuries and bad signings and then important players being off form, the recipe isn't great for success, is it?
No, definitely not. Looking forward to the game at the weekend then. Well, I don't know if you are looking forward to it.
I'm not at all. I'm absolutely not.
No
I
way.
promise you right now, our record, as you guys will well know, is absolutely awful against you guys. I know you're going to ask me for a prediction soon, but I'm not going to predict the Leicester win. I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to. I'm going to hate every single moment of it.
Well, I don't know if you've watched our last 2 games of football, Jake. The Kidderminster Harriers away, which was
good side.
Yeah.
I'm terrified because we've got Randers FC in the Europa Conference League. I was going to fly out to Denmark for it, but I went to Napoli and I had the worst time of my life. And I've decided I'm not going to go all the way to northern Denmark to watch us lose potentially against Randers. So I think Kidderminster would give us a game as well. I think you did well to get past them.
Jake, just quickly before we go on to the game then, tell us, because I know a little bit about your Napoli trip. Was it as bad as Jonesy and I booking flights and a hotel to Vienna, to the tune of around 500 quid, only to be told within 48 hours, James, that first of all, fans would be banned, and then Austria had gone into complete lockdown, so we couldn't even go for a little romantic trip away.
It's close, you know.
It was good.
It really is close.
Tell us what happened.
It is quite comfortably the worst football trip in general I've ever been on in my life. It rained from the very moment we got there till the moment we left, and not just normal rain. It was torrential to the point that you couldn't even walk around without getting absolutely soaked wet through. If anyone's been to Napoli before, with the greatest of respects, it's not actually a particularly nice city. You know, around Napoli, you know, the Amalfi Coast, Sorrento, beautiful. Napoli, not really. We missed half of the game because the organised buses which they put on took us the wrong way around the city during rush hour. So there was 5 goals in the game, of which we missed 4 of them. Sorry. The only goal I did see was the winning goal for Napoli. They then made us stay in the stadium for an entire hour afterwards. You know, as they do as a security measure. Yeah. But there was about 10,000 fans in the stadium anyway, so no one was bloody there to wait for us anyway. By the time we got back to Napoli after the game, we all just wanted to go home. And that's basically what we did. And
what do you reckon, Jonesy? Better or worse than ours? Well, our trip, which consisted of talking about what we would have done if we'd have gone on the trip or left our homes.
It does sound horrendous.
It was awful.
I honeymooned in Sorrento, so I'd have been quite tempted just to sort of take a little drive down there, just to kill some time instead. Yeah,
don't do it.
It's lovely down there.
Honestly, don't go to Napoli. I cannot stress this enough. There's nothing there.
There's still a chance we'll draw them in the knockout stages, obviously. So talking about the game on Sunday, Leicester West Ham, we're in terrible form. The Watford game last night was weirdly as attritional and terrible as the Kidderminster Harriers was, despite the fact that the pitch was loads better and some of our good players actually played. You're not going into it in a great vein of form either. Is it just going to be a horrible 0-0 with both teams play terribly, or does someone get a stay of execution out of it?
If there's anything that you know about Leicester is that we concede, and at very frequent regularity. I believe it's now over more than 2 goals a game. It's pushing 3 goals a game that we concede. So if Leicester score 4, then we may make a game of it. But I suspect we won't. So, and when Leicester have played West Ham in recent games, what I found is that what happens is we get bullied by West Ham. They're a lot more physical than what we are. We're not a physical team, never have been. It's just not the ethos of a Brendan Rodgers side. So we are weak. We're weak defensively. We're rubbish defensively. And you're big and strong, and you know you've got our number. And it does whenever we play you guys, it feels like you've got our number. And I fear that. Well, no, not even fear. I fully expect to lose the game. I really do.
Even taking our form into consideration?
Yeah, I do, because if you go down the route, which is quite clearly obvious that you should go down, is to get balls into the box and to test the defenders, you will get chances. You know, if a game, say for instance like Watford, and Roy Hodgson makes it incredibly difficult to break down. You know, if you sit 2 banks of 4, it's hard to break people down. Leicester are not hard to break down. They're really easy to score against. And I can't see a scenario where players like Souček and Mikel Antonio, etc., aren't completely bullying and dominating our defence and midfield. So look, you know, of course I'll be watching the game.
I'm worried about Antonio, mate.
Well, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Obviously, I'm going to be hoping for a positive result, but I think that the safe money is on a very similar kind of track to what we've seen previously of West Ham winning and probably kind of out, you know, muscling and physicality wise against a very weak and low on confidence and very mentally fragile Leicester team.
It sounds like we've got a mentally fragile, low on confidence, weak Jake Watson in
honestly
the studio.
You are stood there watching it happen, and every single time there's a corner, there's just a collective groan of thinking, oh, here we bloody go again.
This is going in.
No, but I mean, look, if just watch the highlights from the Nottingham Forest game. This is the Championship side, which again aren't a particularly physical side. And Steve Cooper was asked about it afterwards. He said, Did you know about Leicester's weaknesses at crosses?" And it was nodding before the question had even finished. So everyone knows this. So if David Moyes has any sense whatsoever and has watched any Leicester games, just keep putting the ball in the box, and you will score. You will.
What's the defensive situation at Leicester at the moment? Because you said there that you expect us to score loads of goals because you keep conceding. I mean, we've huffed and puffed in the last few games to even get shots on target. But Leicester have had defensive problems, haven't they? You've had like half your defence injured for most of the season. Is that why you're conceding loads? Is that why you think West Ham are going to run riot?
It is absolutely not helped. Johnny Evans is out, Wesley Fofana's out, Timothy Castagne has been out, James Justin has just returned, Ricardo Pereira has just returned, Dan Amarty's been away at the African Cup of Nations, Chagla Soyuncu's form has been absolutely horrific, Yannick Vestergaard has arguably been Leicester's worst signing in the last decade. And I could go on. I could. We've been playing midfielders in defence instead of actual defenders because the defenders are playing so bad. So it's been a different combination of players in every single game, which doesn't help things because there's no consistency, there's no relationship building between the defenders. But that being said, the back four against Nottingham Forest was Luke Thomas, James Justin, Dan Amarty and Chagla Soyuncu, and that is an experienced back four who has played together before. So there's no excuse for the bad defending, but you do have to add context that we are still missing lots of players and it is a different combination every single week. So, Brendan Rodgers hasn't been helped, but at the same time, some of the defence and defending has been inexcusable.
Just a combination.
It's just the basics, head the ball, kick the ball and,
tackle people,
but they're not doing it and they're not. And, it's becoming a big, big problem. And the more it happens, then the more psychologically the defenders know it's a problem.
The worse it gets.
Exactly. And we're now in a horrible situation where I can't see it getting better anytime soon.
Jonesy, I don't know about you, but this has cheered me right up.
Good.
I'm a lot more confident than I was about an hour ago. It's a bit that way.
Yeah, I feel a lot more better about West Ham in general, actually, thanks to Jake.
I feel better as well. I've got this off my chest. It's felt good.
Jake, you suggested, or you mentioned it already earlier on, we're going to ask you for a score prediction, which we always do. You said you're not going for a Leicester win. What are you saying?
3-1 West Ham.
3-1.
And by the way, I've done hundreds of these podcasts and shows before, and we're always asked to predict the score at the end. I don't think I've ever predicted Leicester to lose before.
Wow,
this is a first. Even if I think we're going to lose, I would convince myself we could get a draw
somehow.
Whereas I'm going straight in, we're going to lose 3-1.
Not even a 2-goal difference. No. Yeah.
You'll win it.
Jonesy, what are you saying?
I mean, I know you just spent the best part of 10 minutes saying how bad Leicester are at defending, but I'm just not sure about our ability to really be that ruthless as we were before at the beginning of the season.
Totally agree.
I'm gonna go 2-0 West Ham. And it'll be
just basically what Jake said.
No, we'll score.
No, I'm gonna go 2-0 West Ham, but it'll be like a huff and puff 2-0. It'll be a deflected goal and then like a one from a corner in like 93rd minute when Leicester are just
there'll be one from a corner. That's a safe bet.
I'm gonna think it's gonna be one of those where as we've done today, two groups of fans who aren't really aware of quite how bad the other one are playing. I think it'll be an ugly 1-1. We'll definitely score from a corner now. And both sets of fans just come away just as grumpy as they were about the whole thing before, furious with the point. But look, Jake, it's been brilliant having you with us.
Thank you.
Nice to do in person. I think it's the first time I've ever done it since the old Love Sport Radio days, sitting across each other. But it's James, very disconcerting. Usually when I'm on camera with you, I sort of feel reasonably confident in the fact that I'm the most handsome one on the screen, but having Jake Watson sat next to me, broadcasting and professional model extraordinaire is not a thing you need really on a Wednesday afternoon. But Jake's been brilliant having you with us. Thanks for joining us.